All right, so this is a recording that I am doing related to StatKey, or just an intro to StatKey. Let me share my screen and let me show you. This is what was discussed for the second class we had this week, section 2.1. And we saw these two problems on the lecture handout. Anytime it says use technology, that means that you're going to be using StatKey, and you can get to StatKey by typing in that word StatKey, and the first thing that'll pop up is the StatKey Lock 5. This is what's considered to be the software that we need for doing these homework problems that require technology. We'll be using most everything on here throughout the semester. Right now in this 2.1, we're working with categorical variables. So either one of them or two categorical variables. And in this problem here, they were saying to use the data set restaurant tips as your file to do this exercise where you're seeing which of the servers, server A, B, or C, had the most bills on this, when you tally up the total number of bills that they had. Now, one way to do it to get the data set that you need is you can go, and this is for all of my statistics class, so it doesn't matter which three of my sections you're in. Right now, I'm just picking the top one of my stats class. And you want to go to course materials. So this is one way. I'm going to show you maybe even what you're going to see as a simpler way. In the textbook and resources, you don't need to click on the textbook, but just below it is course-wide resources. And one of them is called data sets. And if you click on this, it'll list all the data sets that are related to our textbook. So you can download any of these. They're all files. And I'm just going to demonstrate here. If we're doing restaurant tips, alphabetical order, restaurant tips is here, and it's going to ask what type of file. And CSV is something that StatKey will recognize. And so when you click this, you just need to be familiar with your computer as to where that download went. For me, it immediately shows it that it's right here on my computer. It is in my downloads. That's most likely where it's going to go for you as well. So I'm going to go ahead and close the data sets, and since I've downloaded the one that I want. But for other homeworks, you can also go to that list and you can find and download what you need. Now, when you're in StatKey, the exercise that we're doing right now is you're doing one categorical variable, which is the three different servers, A, B, or C. I also have a note here that you're using descriptive statistics, one categorical variable. And so here's what I mean by descriptive statistics and graphs. This is like this little group of tools. And here's the one categorical variable. Now, one thing I'm going to note is that some of the data sets are already living over here, but let's just suppose the one that you needed wasn't. Since we've downloaded the restaurant tips to our computer, you can upload the file that you have added to your computer. So you click upload file. Again, I'm going to go to here's my downloads, and I'm going to look for the restaurant tips. I mean, I've got a whole bunch of stuff downloaded here. But just alphabetical order. Let's see. Oh, I went too far. Restaurant. Oop, I went way past that. Here it is. Restaurant tips, and double click it or click open. And then it's going to open up that data set, and notice it's got a lot of different variables, but we're doing the category of servers, server A, B, and C. And so you click that and it'll highlight and it'll know that that's the variable of interest. And then down here, you click OK. And it's going to automatically generate for you this bar graph. And then over here is what we want. We want the summary statistics. And on the right here, you can see A had 60, B had 65, C had 32, or as proportions, you can see that B had the most with about 41%. And if this were your homework problem, and I was asking you which server had the most amount of all the total bills, you would answer, you would write down B. But I would also want you to submit this evidence that you came and you use StatKey, because it is required that when you pass this class that you've used this technology. So for me, I'm using a Mac right now, but a PC, iPad are going to also have just similar ways where you can save this as an image. One way to do it is when I click on these 3 lines, I can print, but instead of printing it to a machine, like this is my printer, instead you can switch it to save to PDF. And when I click this and I click save to PDF, that's good. I can also put that on my desktop and save it. So whenever I go to upload my homework, all the things that I've written down for my answers, and when I attach that, or whenever you're attaching your homework, you can also attach that document that was just saved, where did it go? Oh, there it is right there. These descriptive statistics. It just took a little bit longer to think there. But that's something that you would attach as part of your homework. Okay, let me do one more. Okay, so I'm going back to the lecture handout to show you that sometimes they might ask you to put 2 variables together. In this case, we're doing still, once again, restaurant tips, and they want us to compare once again, the servers, but now whether they use, when customers paid them, did they use credit card or cash? So that's your categorical variable. And then your 3 servers is your other category, server A, B, and C. What we want to do is make a 2-way table, okay, where we can, StatKey is going to do the work for us. Before I do this one though, let me also show you that many times, this is actually the last example I just did, which was just a 1 category. If you don't, sometimes you don't even need to do the upload your file. I almost forgot this, is over here, you can see this one true love. That's a data set and categorical variable. But if you click this, it'll also drop down to you what the authors have put here as things that you're going to need for their homework questions. And if you notice here, there's one called restaurant server, which is a slightly different name when we downloaded it here from the data sets. It was restaurant tips, but this is actually it. It's actually already what you need. And if you click restaurant server, it gives you, it's already here. So you don't always need to go to Blackboard. I think maybe 90% of the stuff we're going to do this semester, you won't even need to go to Blackboard to get the data set. If you just take a little bit of time and look over here, you're most often going to find the data set that you need. Okay, so let me now do the second example, where now they want us to do a 2-way table, credit cards and server. So let me go back to StatKey, and this is something I've already probably bookmarked to my computer. Now we're going to use this one, the 2 categorical variables. And when I click this, again, you don't need to upload the file because there's a pretty good chance that it's already in here. And if you click this, it automatically is using the data set and variable that's at the top, your top choice. But if you go down a little ways here, you'll see restaurant, credit card by server. Those are the 2 variables that this homework problem or this exercise is asking us to do. And if you click it, it's going to automatically generate your side-by-side chart here. But this is what we need here, this table where you've got the yes or no credit card, and then you've got server A, B, and C. And you can see from here who had different amounts of bills, cash or credit card. What's more interesting, I think, is if you click on the proportions, you can see an overall what proportion of the bills B had that were cash and what proportion they had that were credit card. Maybe even more interesting is if you want to do it by row, you can see what happened for A, what happened for B, what happened for C. So here's A, just sort of a one line picture for A. They had 65% cash, 35% of them were a credit card. And then B had a whole lot of cash customers and only about 23% that paid card. So again, right now it's just mainly just getting your first experience with StatKey. Again, you have two options. You can either upload the file, or you can also check here to see if what you need in terms of data set and the variable are already present. Okay. Another way to learn StatKey is just to come here to the very front face of it. Some of these things over here might not make a whole lot of sense, but over here you can start to play around with things. And not too long, we're going to be doing one quantitative variable, and there's already some data sets that you could play with. Suppose you were doing something like the homing pigeons, which we've referenced the homing pigeons before in class, and you can see that there were over 1,400 pigeons that were measured for their speed, and you see most of them are right here in the center, about 450 I think it was like yards per minute, something like that. But you also had some faster birds, and you also had some slower birds down here. But again, just play with StatKey. Again, a lot of the stuff to play with is already here, but you could also go back to the data sets that are part of your resources, and you could download something like let's say like caffeine. There's a bunch of stuff. Let's do cars. You could download cars, and I'm gonna guess that that's gonna have some sort of quantitative variable, and I could upload that. And let me find the cars. Just scroll down. Cars 2015. You can say I've downloaded this one a couple of times, and then you could pick something quantitative, fuel capacity, and it'll plot that for you. Then you could also go to, right now, just focus on categorical. If I did one categorical variable, upload the file, find the cars again. Yeah, this is what I want you to do. Just kind of play around with stuff. And then you can do categorical, what's the make? And it'll show you a little graph. There's all these different categories of different types of cars. It looks like there's quite a bit of, what is this right here? This very first one. I don't know. But anyhow, this is for you to do, just to kind of play around with StatKey, but at least you can see how to do the first two examples. You'll have an example in the homework where you're playing with just categorical variables, but let me know if you run into any questions. All right, I'm going to go ahead and stop there and end this recording.